Good evening, class. Our first discussion is about what is rural social work, how would we explain it, provide examples, and talk about on the micro, meso, and macro levels. So our textbook talks about rural social work being hard to define because there's so many different components to it that it's involved. I would explain it as a small town or community that does not have a lot of resources within itself as far as modern helping communities, and it's right outside of a large town. Where I live in Blount County, we have a couple of larger cities, and then we have many rural areas outside of those cities, and they stretch from one end of the county to the other. Although they're on different sides of the spectrum, it works pretty much the same, where you have to travel minimal 30 minutes to reach most resources. We only have one hospital in the town, and one main post office, and then you have a couple of smaller. So everything is just spread out and have to travel a ways to get to your help. We do not have any homeless shelters. We have one church that opens up for a warming center, and that's for the whole community, so not everybody can even do that. Since COVID, a lot of the churches who were great help in the community backed out of that. They lost funding, as well as just worrying about spreading the sickness. So that's how I would describe the rural social work, is having someone that helps provide or find the resources and make means necessary to be able to have access to those things that they need. When talking about rural social work and the needs for a rural community, it's important to express the values and the components of the community. And one thing you will find in these small rural towns is that they are very close. As a matter of fact, if they're not all family, you act as if you're a family, and even if you're not family, everybody knows everything about you. That can be good and bad. It can be helpful. But because of this small town and not much to do, gossip is a huge tradition, and everybody knows everybody's business. So there are a lot of values there. They are attached to their land. They try to protect it as much as possible. They grow their own food, build housing, and kind of split it up and keep it as farmland as much as possible because the value of their land is sacred to them. Family is very, very important. It is a basic unit that's very close and works together. But again, a lot of people's business because of that. Local institutions are very important. Churches and schools and the post offices. The churches are heavily involved in helping with so many needs. Just because it's a small town and there's not much resources available, churches really stick in there. And then the schools help to get information to the families and the help that they need through the children in schools. People do help people a lot in the rural communities because they know each other and know their business and everything. They are still very willing to help most times and will provide whatever means to help people to get the job done. They have a personal nature of relationship, so those are very important, and the community is very, very close. They sit on their front porch, they talk, they gather around, play music, love arts and crafts. So they have a lot of traditions, and tradition is a huge thing for the rural community. Their communication is they actually talk face to face with one another and about each other. That's just how they did. They didn't really need phones or social media or anything like that to spread the word and to make communication known. They are heavily rely on the tradition, as we just said. They're not big on new trends. They believe in the old-fashioned way. However, they carry kind of bad regard because they get called country hicks and country folk who are very simple-minded and don't know anything. But that is just not true. They know a lot of things. They do rely on themselves and rely on each other. They are hard workers and believe in what they're fighting for. In the micro sense of the system for rural social work, language is very important. They speak kind of their own way, and they develop their own language in terms that they can understand. But it is essential for acceptance, as our textbook says. And so the social worker really needs to get on the rural person's level, not act better than them, learn their language, speak that way. They would be more receptive to the help in doing that. Recreation is important. People try to stay active and do things for fun, but it was more like video rentals, riding bicycles, different things like that. But most things were outdoors because they had the land and able to do that. So that was very important to them. Food is a huge thing. They eat a lot of bad food because that's just what's the most easily accessible unless they grew their own food. So those that did that, they were very willing to share, and they would do that, but it was not always the best of things. They would get a lot of carbohydrates and fatty foods because that's what they did. Music and art, again, was very important to them. They value that, and it makes up who the individual is. In the meso system, while they were simple folk, as our textbook says, they got it wrong that they're not simple-minded and don't know anything. They are very complex and can really compared to an extended family and have close contact with the people. And they are compared to like the Hatfields and McCoys. So if you know anything about that, they operate in the present and they address the past. Some families call certain members black sheep, and those are the ones who are different, and they're excluded and unwelcome because of their behavioral. Their relationships are so important, and so that makes them the more feel of the community. So, they talk a lot about living far back in the country and can't do this and that, but it's not a horrible thing. On the macro system, power structure is huge. Social workers need to find the people that are responsible for making decisions for those people, and that would be county commissioners, judges, council members, sheriff, police chiefs, county directors. All of those people would be who makes your leadership in the rural community. So you want to get with them, find out what programs they have, the decisions that they make, and put it all together and not lose sight of the fact that everybody answers to someone, and that other people are not better than others. In a rural community, much of the influence on decision making is handled informally and is not easily observed, so people don't really always know about the relationships. So in a rural community, there's a lot of good to it, but as far as resources and the help that they need, they have to travel far to get that, so it can make it very difficult. The best thing that a social worker can do to be successful in these areas is to speak their language, do what they would do, learn about their culture, fit in, find out what's important, so that they will be accepted and then trusted to be able to help get the needs that are there. Thank you and have a good night.